All right, we're going to go over the blog post, which is supposed to make us feel good about these really super horrible ISO 5 requirements for the Doom Raid. Join with me is Tony Efson. How's it going, my guy?
Hey.
All right, so yeah, he's hanging out with me here. And so we're going to talk about this post. I got to say, it's mixed bag. I'm not really thrilled about it. The good stuff in this post is not coming until next patch. And some of it just seems so weird. We're going to read it, and then we're going to talk about it. First strike, return, and ISO8 campaign rewards. There was recently significant changes to the Doom Raids incorporating T1 ISO requirements and granting rewards of T2 ISO8. While these changes are important to how players will progress in the future, we understand it was a bigger leap than anticipated. That is not true. They told us about this, and we complained, and they didn't listen. We all anticipated this the second that it came out and the first time that they said they were going to do this. Because I was aware, going from 4 to 5 is a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we knew this.
The leap is dramatic.
Yes, and we voiced this, we verbalized this for weeks now. So it wasn't that they wasn't anticipated; it's just they didn't listen. To provide a smoother transition to the updated Doom Raid, there's several actions being taken. Okay, return of the Doom Raid first strike. So one of the pieces of the feedback that certain alliances were no longer to complete Doom Raid by at least 30% with the updates, thus cutting off access to certain rewards, including the highly prized character shards for Silver Surfer. To adjust for this, we'll be returning to the Doom Raid first strike back into the game for the duration of the Silver Surfer shards and the milestone rewards as an option for alliances that were able to do this raid previously but unable to make the leap into the updated Doom Raid. Here are some of the details. Doom Raid will be identical to how it was previously with no updates to difficulties or rewards. So that means no blue ISOs. And if you care about a season milestone rewards, you're going to be ahead doing this, but you won't get the blue ISOs. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah. The card to access the raid will be embedded in the Doom Raid group. It'll be the same cost and rules as other raids, and you use raid energy and ultimate keys. There isn't a date. Okay, so the problem is that there were people that were doing 30 or 60% on the Doom Raids from before. Now they can't do the current version of the Doom Raids, and they had to go back to U7.5, and they were getting cut out of Silver Surfer shards, right? So, okay, but the problem is that still no blue ISO. So I'll tell you what my experience was. We were doing 100% Doom Raid, and we were killing it, right?
Yeah.
Now we've been cut down to doing like 60%, 70%, 80% of the new Doom Raids, but we're getting blue ISOs. Yeah. But now we're going to have to make a decision because the problem with this is that the first strike and the new Doom Raids have the same season milestone points. So if we want to place in the top 10, we could drop down to the old Doom Raid. We won't get any blue ISO. It's so why? What do you think?
It never, whenever they make these updates, I'm just befuddled by the fact that they never feel good. Like this, we're very loud about our feelings about this stuff way ahead. The moment we have insight into what the changes are going to be, they do it this way. Then they have to go back,
right?
Like they never, like this is new information, and it's not. Right. We're screaming it from the mountaintops that this isn't going to work, and here's why. And then they have an epiphany, they fix it, and then the fix just never feels good.
Right, and so I don't think this particular part here won't affect you and I at all. Because I'm going to guess that my alliance is going to say, yeah, we're still going to slog it through and get to 30 or 60% because we want to get the T2I. Because the blue ISO is better than the raid. I don't know, man. Or the Silver Surfer. It's like you're going to have to choose. So to be clear, the way that it was with no blue ISOs will be reintroduced. And that'll be good for people that were forced back into U7.5, which, if you want to play in the Moondragon event, you probably should be in U7.5. Or, actually, the other thing, too, is the Moondragon event is trash because you're going to have to use the quirky tag, and you really can't use the quirky tag in the Doom Raids because we have no characters at ISO 5, very limited. I mean, like a handful of 5 or 6, yeah.
That are,
Yeah, so maybe we'll forego, because there's no ISO8 requirements on the First Strike Doom Raid. Yeah. If they turn this on during the Moondragon event, maybe it'll be better for us to go back to the old Doom Raid and not get any ISOs, get all the Silver Surfer Shards from the milestones, and be able to actually complete the Moondragon event. It's
the decision that you have to make between blue ISOs now and
the Moondragon event.
Yeah.
If they turn this on when the Moondragon event's going, the Moondragon event starts tonight. That event is trash, by the way. It's trash because unless you're in 7.5, how are you going to be able to fulfill that? You can't do it in the Gamma Raid.
Yeah, it's
all right.
Every event is like this, and it doesn't make any sense. And then there's no date on it on top of it.
Yeah, no date. Okay, so now this right here sounds good, but this is not, okay, before we read into this is not, all of this stuff here is good, but it is not coming until the next patch, which we don't know when that is. I'm going to guess the next patch is going to come July, somewhere in here, somewhere between, typically patches come out on Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays, maybe the 6th or the 13th. I don't know. We don't have an official date. It's all subject. They probably don't even know. Because they can always. So this stuff is, all of this stuff right here, I actually like. I think it's a welcome change, but will not be happening for weeks. As mentioned in a previous post, and they talked about this already, actually, but they're going to boost a load. We'll be increasing the availability of T1 ISO8 to all players to enter the updated version of Doom Raid with T2 ISO rewards. Additionally, there will be updates to the ISO8 campaign, including the following. And I actually think this is kind of great. All T1 ISO8 crystal drops will increase from 1x to 2x. Okay. Cool, right? So they're going to double the amount of ISO8 pieces that drop, period. That's huge. That's huge. This is a big deal. Big deal, right? That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. They're basically going to double the amount of ions, more than double the amount of ions. Is that a big deal?
It's twice as good.
It's actually a pretty good deal. So when you're farming ISOs, there's two. There's the ones that cost 24 and the ones that cost 12. The ones that cost 24, you don't get to focus on what you're looking at because it gives more different, but they're going to double the numbers on that. They're going to double the amount of ions, and it's going to start dropping the T1 basic orb fragments, which we get those like from login calendars. Those are okay, right?
Yeah, they're all right.
Okay. So this is kind of interesting. We were talking about this a little bit. Missions which cost 12 will go from 425 ions to 1,000. Now, I was actually opting to do the 24s because they gave 1,000 instead of 425. Now it's going to be 2,000 and 1,000. So the ratio is going to be the same because it's 12 and 24. And the difference, the reason to do the 24s, which doesn't give you you only get, it's so spread. It's hard to focus fire on it because they give you so many different types. Mm-hmm. If you're looking just for one piece, because all we need is controllers nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had the opposite approach. I would wail on the ions because I just felt like that was it was such a bottleneck that I gave up on it. So I would spend cores on them, and I would just try to I would spend all mine on the 12s, hoping I'd have like more chances because I would spend.
Right. Well, there's still going to be the ion bottleneck is not necessarily going to change because they're going to be giving double the amount of ISO8 crystals. Yeah. So they're doubling the amount of ions. So the ratio of crystals to ions will probably be the same. Actually, the ions, because the basic orbs just give the pieces, yeah. Right? So I don't think I think there's always going to be a deficiency of ions, especially if you have to change classes, right?
Oh God. And the way that was presented to us in the beginning, it sounded like the way they package it, like there's this flawless transition to move from striker to skirmisher, and it's so ridiculously expensive that it just seems wildly irresponsible to even switch classes. So maybe with this,
yeah. you've got Raider on Symbiote Spider-Man, and tomorrow you feel that Skirmisher's the best. Guess what? You need a lot of ions. and yeah, they're doubling the amount of ions, which is great. But the thing is that they're also doubling the amount of crystals, so the ratio is going to stay the same.
Okay.
So you're still going to have a deficiency of ions over time, right?
Right. So at the end of the day, nothing will take away from.
This is good, though. This is great.
This is good.
This is
but
great.
Ultimately, everything leads back to there's a paywall behind it in some way, shape, or form, whatever smoke and mirrors there are. And they still, like we said, the ratio is the same, so they're not taking away from that.
Yeah, I could see this leading to a situation where you have an abundance of crystals, the individual pieces and characters ready to be upgraded, but still not have enough ions because the ratio is staying the same. And they're actually they're giving away these basic orbs, which just give the crystals. Okay. Lastly, which I think this is great too, the 12 cost ion energies will be able to be cleared 20 times instead of 10. Because when you got to 10, then you'd have to spend the 50s to refresh it. Now it'll go to 20, which will mean like that one piece you need to finish your controller. You'll be able to go deeper onto that. That's great, right?
Yeah, that's a big deal actually, because because of how RNG works, there's sometimes where I'm making this one last push and I'm willing to core to get where I need to upgrade that ISO, and it gets frustrating when you have bad RNG. You drop 100 energy and you don't get a single one, and then you have to wait for another refresh. So you're like, I'm gonna core this, and I've had it where I've done that. I've cored 5 times in a row with.
No, well, you're a dirty whale, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so I just want to drop my thoughts on this. This is all great. I feel that this should have happened already. Like they should have did this at the introduction of this. This is a little late. I want to take this, but we'll keep reading it and we'll kind of get to the kicker.
Late and no sense of urgency.
Yeah, the 10 of these changes allow players more effectively target specific crystals, which this right here, because going for the 12s lets you target specific crystals better than the 24s, right? Yeah. So that's true.
Which was my strategy, where you had a different approach. You really wanted the ions.
Yes. Well, if you're gonna buy the ions, then that makes sense. But anyways, I was just kind of.
I always went after the 12s first because I would buy the ions.
Whenever I felt like I had a surplus of ions, then I would start doing the 12s. You know what I mean? Just because that's just the way. And this will still be a thing because technically, the 24s will give more basic fragments than the 12, so it's still going to be that way to a certain degree. There was always an advantage to doing the 24s over the 12s with the less agency and more randomness, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So the intent of these changes allow players to more effectively target specific crystals, via missions that cost 12, or to make untargeted but guaranteed progress. They're saying the 24s are going to be more efficient long term, but the problem is it's going to be blaster and brawler stuff that you don't need, and all we need is controller and support, right?
Well,
it's changing lately. This Infinity Watch team has a good mix of brawlers, actually.
There's a pretty relevant brawler bottleneck there for a second. There was like every new team that would come out would have 2 brawlers. Even with the revamp, you had Iron Fist and Colleen Wing, I think, were both brawlers. Then with this new team, you had Nebula and Gamora. Previous to that, you had Shadowlands. Well, how many brawlers were on that team?
Yeah.
So,
but the bottleneck for Doom is controllers. Like good raid characters all happen to be controllers. It seems they're all controllers. So this has been a problem. Now, the last part of the post seems completely useless to me. Basically, they spell out all the changes and the difference between the Doom raid from before and now. This should have been in patch notes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just to be clear, they're changing nothing. The way that it is in game now is staying the same. They're just telling us what the changes that happened 2 weeks ago are. Useless.
Yeah. Useless. Yeah.
All right. So I want to go to Reddit, and then we're going to wrap up the video. Because I like reading the comments, like the direct feedback, and it's interesting how similar it usually is. ISO-8 changes should have been done the day the patch came out.
Yeah, I never understand the lack of urgency for stuff like that, especially we're not a quiet community by any means.
Yeah, and then I think this Moondragon event where they're the quirky tag, it's like they cut paste the event from the prior, and they didn't even realize that we can't use we don't have quirky characters at ISO 5, and they just like whoopsie, and Gamma is useless. It's like they didn't think this out. And I mean, if they bring back the Doom, the OG Doom, that's fine, but then you have to give up the T2 oh my god. And then there's a question whether or not it's bugged, whether it's a visual bug or an actual bug on the upgrade to the T2 ions.
But these changes should feel good, and this is another example of where at the end of the day you're not sure if it's an upgrade, if it's really truly a fix, because there's always this weird caveat to, well, we fixed this, but, and
right.
You're always left with feeling like that you're giving something up even when they make these changes.
Well, and not only that, like a lot of these changes to the abundance of giving away the green ISO is still going to happen after the Warlock event, and there's people that are probably scrambling to get characters up to ISO 5 for that. I don't know. It's a little late. The details of digital changes is kind of useless because that should have been in the patch notes, right? Season points. Oh, this is the thing. So this is a good point. Season points need to be looked at if the first strike is returning. Currently, Doom 1 had the same amount. So we talked about this already, yeah. but basically the first strike gives the same amount of season points as Doom 1, and I'm going to promise you, we were 100%ing the first strike, and now we're doing 70-80%. I think you're doing the same thing in your alliance. So the season points are not going to be the same. So we have to give up Silver Surfer shards and season points in exchange for blue ISO, right?
Yeah, it's again, it just seems tone deaf and odd. It never, this quirky thing, this new quirky tag, it just feels like they're not testing it. They don't hear us. I don't know. Just
again, the first strike, no blue ISOs. So there's really not an incentive to do it for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's just more of the same. It's weird because we'll see this from a mile away. The player base will say, hey, here's this problem you're gonna have. They'll implement it anyway, and then they'll go back and fix it later on after we're all angry.
Okay, so at the end of the day, if you want blue ISOs, if you want to get Adam Warlock, and if you want to play in this new daily challenges that they haven't come about, they talked about in the blog post, you're going to have 5 ISOs. This entire post didn't address that at all, and I think this says it perfectly. The fact that ISO requirements are remaining is as is for the non-first strike Doom Raid shows you really haven't listened to any player feedback. You're trying to put out a fire you should never have created in the first place. What do you think? You okay with the ISO 5 if they double the amount that you can get?
No.
Okay. The problem I have with I had 2 problems with the level 5 ISO. One is that I never felt organically incentivized to upgrade my characters to 5 when I could just leave most of them at 3 and they were effective at 3. It wasn't powerful enough for me to, because I could do 9 at 3 or 1 at 5, and I was like, no, I'd rather have 9 at 3.
The first thing I did was I got everyone that I used in War. War's your favorite game mode as well.
All up to 3.
All up to 3.
All up to 3.
So I took everyone that was in War. I just went through my roster, got them all to 3, and then I went back and prioritized all of them to get to 4. The next one's to 4. And then from there, once all of those were done,
right,
then I started gradually taking characters up to 5.
So to be clear, getting to 3 costs 9, getting to 4 costs 27, and then getting to 5 costs 81. 81. So it's triple. Like the value wasn't there. So like unless I just like it was like to me it was like if I was really struggling, certain Doom Raid characters and certain arena characters, and then it's like, wow, I got Proxima at 5 and I don't use her. There was weird characters that, and then now it's like, no, you picked wrong. It needed to be all raid characters, and it's the skill. Anyways, it's been a mess. I'm just gonna leave my final thoughts, and then I'll kick it over to you. I'm glad that they're doubling basically the amount of ISOs we can get, doubling the amount of ions we can get.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's not until several weeks from now. We're probably 3-4 weeks away. I'll take it. It doesn't help me now, And this is it's. I don't even. It's this post right here. I think sums up the problem. Is that this was a problem they created, and I don't know how we're supposed to feel good about this. It's not even a really much relief to it at all. No. And so I don't know. I think they're gonna. If it's very obvious they're holding to their guns on shoving ISO-8 down our throats, and we just gonna have to take it, I guess. And that's that, right?
Yeah. So I love the doubling of everything. That's wonderful, great improvement. But I don't like that it ultimately is going to result where we have to make this choice again, where that doesn't feel good. At the end of the day, I still have these characters. I have Gamora that's like one piece away from tier 3 blue, and then I have a couple other characters I'm actively working on. But we have a mixed bag in our alliance. We have people that are in all different ranges. We have 10 mil TCP, and we have people over 20 mil. And there's a lot of things to take into consideration before we choose which Doom we're going to do every day.
Well, the thing about this thing is that to do the Moondragon event, if you're doing the current version of Doom that's in the game right now, you're not going to do well unless you drop back to U7.5. And if they don't, and if they reinstate the first strike, then it's going to be possible to do the Moondragon requirements, because you're going to have all the quirky characters available to you, the ones that you didn't upgrade, and maybe insert one on a team.
But it still doesn't feel good to upgrade some of those characters. Like, I don't want to put those investments in some of those, like...
You're right, yeah, because right now I need to take, for me to do my lane right now, I need to put ISO 5 on Mr. Sinister and Venom. And Venom, because I'm hearing that Venom, like you have to use a full symbiote team if you want to go into difficulty 1, is what I'm hearing. Yep. Like, you go to the next step, it's not going to work with Phyla. Like, I was using 4 and Phyla, it's just not going to work, is what I'm hearing. And then also, Mr. Sinister, that's just for one node, so that I can clone the opposing long shot. I'm not going to use Mr. Sinister anywhere, and I have to upgrade him. It's kind of weird.
So at the end of the day, this game's about resource management, and when they force you to spend your resources on characters that you're not inclined to do, it's another thing that doesn't feel good. Right. So that's why I have the biggest problem.
So what do you think? Do these changes feel good, or they feel bad? Is it okay? You'll take what you can get. Boy, it's a mixed bag. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll put a link down to Tony Halfcent's channel as well. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Keep on gaming. Bye.